Hey everyone, it's Dr. Troy Schott here with the Modern Martial Arts and Health Radio podcast. I have a new guest with me today. He's Sifu Ed Monaghan. He is a Jeet Kune Do instructor and martial arts gym owner up in Santa Clarita Valley in Southern California. Sifu Ed has studied a variety of martial arts for over 40 years, holding black belt or equivalent ranks as well as instructor certification in Jeet Kune Do, Savate, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, and Kung Fu. He's competed in various venues and is also a professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, or UCLA. He studied Jeet Kune Do with two of Bruce Lee's students, Sifu Jerry Poteet and Guru Dan Inosanto, and also leads instructor courses for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, as well as teaching privately for celebrities. Sifu Ed, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Troy. How about yourself?
Not too bad at all. As we were kind of already discussing before I pressed record, just kind of working and working out at home because can't train with anybody at the moment. So,
Right.
but you know that as a gym owner, and you were telling me that you guys were kind of prepared to start doing limited capacity stuff. Well, what's the plan with that?
Well, as of right now, we are offering everything online. And
Right.
we've had a wonderful transition. Actually, all of our students have really embraced the online training format. And
Yeah.
it's worked out quite well for us, so much so that we plan to keep it going even after the quarantine is
Wow,
over.
that's great.
Because it's allowing for access to people who ordinarily would not be within a geographical range,
Right.
and it wouldn't have the training accessible. And, of course, online, it's limited
Yeah.
because you don't have that personalized
Hmm.
individual instruction. But we can offer a great deal of guidance, particularly if that person is training with a partner.
Right.
It makes it almost like they're in class.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a certain amount of rank that you can go through in that format, and
Right.
that's kind of it. I mean, you have to do it in person. But as far as opening is concerned, with the beginning of phase 2 of the
Mm.
reopening procedures, which begins today, Governor Newsom has allowed for businesses to open in a limited capacity,
Yeah.
some retail businesses and whatnot. And we also are a licensed child care center.
Okay.
So we have been allowed to be open, actually, the entirety of the quarantine, caring for children of essential workers.
Right.
Now, most of our parents were not that. They were working from home, so we
Right.
just chose to close down completely.
Hmm.
Now that we have a number of parents who do work for the
Hmm.
businesses, which are allowed to move back into the, kind of working in a limited capacity,
Right.
we can hold classes for the kids of those parents who need to
Right.
be watched. So we'll be opening in a limited capacity with the state modifications, which have come down from state licensing. So we've
Yeah.
a lot of just basically super sanitary
Right.
practices and distancing practices. But at least we'll have some people in person and some people online. So it'll
Yeah.
begin the process of reintegration.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting because just this morning I got an email from Grapple Arts owner Stephen Kesting, and he was sharing a doctor of osteopathy's kind of guidelines for reopening
Yeah, I saw
Brazilian
that for
jiu-jitsu
jiu-jitsu
gyms.
schools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I kind of I shared that on my blog and stuff like that, so people can find that as well, and kind of get a good idea of what is to be expected over the next several months to maybe probably next year,
Yeah.
of what we're going to have to learn to accept and deal with, and just start training as comfortably as we possibly can until this kind of really starts to go away in the next couple years. So
Yeah, it's very interesting time, isn't
mhm.
it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I wanted to get a little bit more into you, into your kind of where you came from in terms of training the martial arts, and how you got into it, as well as what you're doing now. Because what you're doing now, and for anybody who doesn't know this, I actually trained with you for for quite a few years, until I had to move on with other life changes and stuff like that. But you know, when we were at that smaller studio, in kind of the early 2010s, maybe even just before that, there was it was a good group of people, and there was a lot of good training, but you had a very specific method that you followed, that really seemed to help people progress in a very natural way. I'd like you to kind of go into that a little bit better, because you could probably say it better than I can. But we'll start with kind of your history. How did you get into martial arts?
Well, I got into it because I was a punk, and quite honestly, um, I was 11 years old, and a friend of mine was a huge Bruce Lee fan,
Yeah.
and he was training, and we were hanging around with a bunch of drug addicts, and
Yikes.
we we were from Kentucky,
Mm.
um, and I'm it was not because my family was horrible or anything like that. It was just because we kind of in a lower middle class neighborhood, and we just chose to gravitate toward that world.
Right.
And man, in doing so, there were a lot of, even as a kid, a lot of dangerous situations,
Mm.
and a lot of aggressive, hostile people,
Right.
and I wanted to be able to kick the snot out of them,
Right.
so I started taking karate when I was young,
Mm.
and which was Shotokan, and
Right.
and listen, there was no Mr. Miyagi complex for me. I mean, it was, I
Yeah.
did have a fascination with the idea of the mystical elements of martial
Mm-hmm.
arts, but
Yeah.
it was far more inspired by the practical
Right.
of being able to just handle myself.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I had a lot of negative stuff that I did at that time. I was a drug addict and alcoholic.
Mm.
That happened very early, and
Yeah.
I was a train wreck, man. And I learned how to fight, and then I went and I did Kung Fu, kind of a version of Shaolin Kempo.
Yeah.
Got a couple of black belts, and did full contact karate. And what at the time were called tough man contests, and
Yeah.
and I was just a maniac, man. I'd drink a half pint of whiskey and take a few hits of acid and go pointing at the guy that I was supposed to fight, and I'd just go kill him.
Yeah.
And
I remember hearing of some of those stories.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
But that hostility and that aggressiveness took me a long way in terms
Yeah.
of being successful in that world.
Right.
And then, but I got kicked out a lot, and I got disqualified a lot because I was
No.
doing, I was just enraged, and
Right.
was not adhering to the boundaries of the rules.
Right.
So anyway, I mean, I did all that stuff, and I boxed some, and I did some wrestling, and
Right.
and then I came to California. I sobered up in Kentucky
Right.
and salvaged what was left of my school career, and I at that time began to kind of integrate what I was doing in martial arts movement with more of the philosophical and exploring the Eastern traditions. And when I came to California, one of my instructors at UCLA, I went to grad school at UCLA, was a student of Dan Inosanto. And I'd been a big Bruce Lee fan and found out that he was very close to where I was living.
Yeah.
And man, I made a beeline down there and started, I think, 1985 or 6.
Yeah.
And, that really began the whole process of the exposure to the concepts group of Jeet Kune Do. And trained for, with a bunch of guys down there, Chad Stahelski, Eric Paulson, just, really good practitioners were there kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
Ron Beliki, Diana Lee Inosanto, Brandon Lee, all those people were down there. Chris Kent, Jeff Amata, a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of the old school names from Jeet Kune Do, and as well as who are now some of the pioneers of mixed martial arts.
Right. So, I'll kind of stick to just my Jeet Kune Do journey because I went through that. I went into Thai boxing and Savate, and it kind of there's a lot. I mean, if you want to get me into all of it, it'll take us the whole time just talking about that. Yeah. But suffice it to say that I trained with some really good guys. Surapuk Junta, who was the head of who founded the Muay Thai Academy over in North Hollywood. That's been fought out of there for a while. Yeah. And Saxon Janjira, and then Francis Chenard and Nikolai Signac for Savate, Salam Asili, and so I earned kind of instructor certifications and black belts or the equivalent thereof, and all those things, and then Jiu-Jitsu with the Machados and and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu with Sensei Chadwick Minge, and then I had been simultaneously studying Qigong with Yu Wen Mei and several other practitioners, and I'm currently under Master Ting Chu Zhou, and went to China with him and studied at Wudong, and and studied with Tibetan lamas, Vajrayana, and Zen with Venerable Master Miao Tsen. So to me, the philosophy is every bit as important as the physicality, if not more so. And so that's really where this and you were talking about how do I blend all this stuff together. So there are essentially two. This is really kind of an inappropriate thing to say, that there are two general approaches to Jeet Kune Do. Because Jeet Kune Do is very individualized. Anybody who's a Jeet Kune Do practitioner knows that it is not a style of martial art. It's an approach to learning and self-actualization. And but from a practical perspective, when you're learning the fundamental biomechanics of the structure that Bruce Lee developed, there are kind of two approaches. And the first I learned through the Inosanto Academy, which is called the Concepts Group. And Guru Dan, the way that he approached it was he branched out, and he studied so many things and became so well-rounded and so well-versed, and he brought that to all his students. And when you went there, I mean, it was this plethora of classes that you could choose from. And the only downside to that was that it could be confusing. if you had no real background,
Yeah.
you didn't really know where, what was this thing, Jung
Yeah.
Fan, Jeet Kune Do, or
Yeah.
Jung Fan, Gong Fu, and
Yeah.
what's that? How's that relate to Thai boxing? And why am I kickboxing now? And why am I grappling now?
Right. Right.
Where's the Jeet Kune Do in that?
Right.
So, and what's Silat and all
Right.
these other things. So it was a little confusing. I mean, Guru Dan would always explain all that stuff, but
Yeah.
you were a little bit left to your own devices.
Right.
So you just had to explore it.
Yeah.
And that was, I believe, his approach, which was, it's up to you, choose your path.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is a valid choice.
Yeah.
And so in the late 90s, I was teaching out of my jiu-jitsu sensei's dojo in Studio City.
Yeah.
Walked down the street one day and walked into a bakery, just killing time before my next class.
Yeah.
Had a JKD symbol on my shirt, and there was a lady there, and she said, "Oh, JKD, where do you do that?" And so I started talking to her, thinking, "Oh, she might be interested in taking classes." And she says, "Well, my name's Fran Joseph Poteet." and I said, "Poteet."
Yeah.
She said, "That's right. I'm Jerry Poteet's wife."
Yeah.
And I was like, "You are, really?" And is he close by? Because literally this was a Tuesday, the next Wednesday, I stopped going to the Anasanto Academy because it was just too far away. It was in the Monaghan, and I lived in Valencia, so I was going to Studio City, but I was like, man, I got to get with some of these original guys again.
Yeah.
And I had run into Bob Bremer and Pete Jacobs at a seminar in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And they had invited me to come out to the Wednesday night group out in Redlands.
Yeah, I've actually been there a couple times.
Yeah. And so so I went there, or I was due to go there literally the next night.
Yeah.
And Fran said, I said, "Well, is Super Jerry teaching?" She said, "We just started again." And I said, "Do you think he would be interested in taking a student?"
What a chance encounter, though.
Oh, man. And that's what started this
Yeah.
beautiful path where I became one of his private students. And I'm now, he passed away in 2012.
I remember.
I was with him when he died.
Wow.
And I'm his highest ranked instructor next to Sifu Fran. She runs the association, who's the highest ranked instructor, being with him over 30 years.
Yeah.
But I'm the next highest instructor, the only senior instructor in the organization.
Yeah.
And Sifu Jerry's approach was very different. He was one of the dominant forces in what was originally called the nucleus, which was kind of everybody other than Dan and Asante.
Right.
And their objective was to try to keep what Bruce was teaching strictly what Bruce was teaching.
Right.
So they developed Jung Fan, Jeet Kune Do, which was Bruce's Chinese name, Jung Fan, and Jerry was considered to be kind of the keeper of the flame. He was the guy who was just absolutely adamant about passing on what Bruce Lee had taught to him in its purity.
Yeah.
And so, there was so much that I learned from him. And, granted, I never trained privately with Guru Dan.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Ron Baliki and Dino Masato. And I used to see Ron training privately with Guru Dan over off the floor. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, suck up. Date the head instructor's daughter. Right?
Yeah. Well, he did marry his daughter, so...
I gave him shit about that all the time. So, but we're all really good friends.
Yeah.
But he had the advantage of training privately with Guru Dan. I never had that.
Yeah.
I never did that, and so I had the opportunity to be with Super Jerry for all those years.
Right.
And so what I did. There is a simplicity to the approach that Sifu Jerry holds.
Yeah.
And what I did was kind of, to the best of my ability, merge those two worlds. So I integrated some of the elements that Guru Dan brought to the experience, which was, training in Thai boxing, Savate, Jiu-Jitsu, Kali, and some of the elements of Sifu Jerry's Jeet Kune Do, which is called JPJKD,
right?
Jerry Poteet Jeet Kune Do. And that's what the students get at our school. And then we also have a specific class that's Jerry Poteet Jeet Kune Do, that Sifu Fran and I kind of split, and Sifu Michael Ha, who's been with us for many years.
Yes, I know him.
Yeah, sure you do. Yeah, we all kind of split the duties of teaching just purely Sifu Jerry's approach, and that's a course that we only invite our longtime students into because it requires more self-awareness.
Right.
So that's kind of how we approach it, and we have a segmented system. And I created belts that just segments the material.
Yeah.
But we really try to stay very cautious of not being driven in any way by the belts. It's just a way to segment material.
Right.
And of course, that's why Bruce did away with the whole thing, because it gave a false sense of accomplishment, I believe, to people in hierarchy.
Yeah.
Which is not at all, what we're attempting to do.
Well, and with Sifu Jerry Poteet, I think the thing that always kind of I really liked about his approach was that minimalist approach to not just Jeet Kune Do, but to the martial arts, that he was really adamant about focusing on obviously what Bruce Lee taught, but the absolute kind of essentials of what Bruce Lee taught as well.
Right.
And on the whole ranking thing, I always remember that funny story you would tell, and I think I even heard Sifu Jerry tell it once, that he Bruce Lee handed him a certificate, and he said, "This is something you could wipe your ass with now."
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He and Dan Lee, he handed them instructor certifications, and they gave them back basically because they said they didn't feel that was right, because the other guys who had been invited, so Sifu Jerry and 5 other guys had been invited to go up to Bruce Lee's house and train twice a week, independent of the school down in Chinatown.
Right.
So that was Pete Jacobs, Bob Bremer, Steve Golden, Dan Lee, and Jerry.
Yeah.
And so they just didn't feel right about taking the certifications and the other guys not having the certifications, so they gave it back. And that's why Guru Dan is the only guy who technically has a certification.
Right.
And they just didn't feel right about it. I was with Jerry and Dan Lee at Ted Long's memorial service down in Chinatown, and standing on the sidewalk, hearing them both talk about that time.
Yeah.
Standing right next to him.
Wow.
So, and Dan Lee did his last public seminar at our school, the old school on Cinema Drive,
right
after Sifu Jerry passed.
Yeah.
He just did that as a favor. He'd quit teaching Jeet Kune Do altogether.
Yeah.
And came up just for Sifu Fran and did that last little seminar where about 10 of our students got to participate. And that was the last one he did before he died.
Yeah. I think I had left the school by then, but I was supposed to come up, and something came up or something like that, which is, I kind of kicked myself for missing that. But, I mean...
But you had the chance to train with Sifu Jerry.
Yes, I did.
And not many people did. You had exposure to that original group. I mean, and the last 2 guys, Taki Kimura and Guru Dan's still going strong, but Taki's getting older, and he's pretty much, his son teaches everything now. So, you had the opportunity to do that, and man, what a blessing, because
Yeah.
those guys are not going to be around much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have one picture of myself with Sifu Jerry and you, and it's like it's like one of my treasured pictures. So,
Absolutely.
just because it was he passed away so suddenly, it seemed like,
Yeah.
and you know a lot of that opportunity to really learn from him, kind of just evaporated like that. And I feel bad for anybody who comes into Jeet Kune Do now and does not have that opportunity to train with any of Bruce's students.
Yeah. Hey, listen, as much as I did train with him, I kick myself almost daily that I didn't make the effort to go train with him more while he
Yeah,
was alive,
yeah,
because that's a very good point. He abruptly passed. No one expected it,
yeah,
and um, and it was always one of, I'm too busy, I got too much to do, I got too much work, I've got this,
yeah,
I've got that. Always some excuse to where I would, in the latter phases of training with him, I'd go once every month or something like that, and I could have been there every day if I wanted to, because he
yeah.
was just that gracious with his time.
Right.
And what a lesson to learn to not be so fixated on this day-to-day nonsense that we entrench ourselves with when
Yeah,
we have those opportunities before us.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me about your approach at Ikata Martial Arts and Fitness. How are you kind of really, and you touched upon it a little bit, but how are you really kind of putting this together that it becomes so not simple, but just more accessible for a lot of the people who train at the school?
Well, I think the first and most prevalent factor is that we create an environment that's welcoming
Mm,
and open,
yeah,
and we do that for the whole family.
yeah,
Uh, we have a lot of parents who train with us,
yeah,
and kids are exposed to it, and the underlying theme of everything that we do is based in the principles of mindfulness.
yeah.
Uh, I'm a certified mindfulness facilitator for UCLA's Mindful Awareness Research Center.
Right.
I've been doing things with the research center since it's existed when it started in 2005,
Yeah.
and because I've been practicing different forms of meditative practice for as long as I've been doing martial arts. So that's
Yeah.
45 plus years,
Yeah.
and and um, and what's really important for all of our students is this connection
Mm,
between the philosophical principles, the principles of mindfulness,
yeah.
and how that integrates into one's life using using movement as a conduit.
Right.
So so it becomes about much more than just I can throw a punch and a kick, or I can defend myself, or I can go kick someone's ass, or I
Yeah.
can go do a ring fight, or whatever.
Right.
It becomes about self cultivation.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who matures in martial arts recognizes the value of self cultivation
Yeah.
and the evolution of health,
Yeah.
because that's what your livelihood is to help people with their health and
Right.
help them to feel balanced in their lives.
Right.
And that's ultimately I think what the Bruce Lee was a huge fan of Jiddu Krishnamurti,
Mm-hmm.
and Krishnamurti's entire principle is all knowledge is self knowledge.
Yeah.
It's through this process of self exploration, and which inherently means that it requires self awareness and the evolution and development of self awareness.
Yeah.
That we have to have that experience in order to understand that this physical is just simply a conduit for that. It's our space suit, but it's also our teacher. We learn from our physical environment. We are spiritual beings having a human experience on this plane of existence. And this is our method by which we gather information. So, so our bodies are our way in which we synthesize data, how we perceive the world. And we have to use those, and they're the means by which we express ourselves. And that one of the things that Bruce Lee said was to be in relation. So creating that connection, the relationship between people, that's part of the physicality of Jeet Kune Do. And it's a dance that is spontaneous between practitioners. So, and that's not an approach that's taken very many places. Most, if you look at a lot of what's out there, the MMA mind state is, tatted up, yo. That whole thing. And I don't mean to denigrate the experience of MMA, because it's a great thing. I mean, it showed what really works and what doesn't. And
absolutely.
That's kind of, and Jeet Kune Do is considered to be kind of the father of mixed martial arts. So, I mean, I'm not poo-pooing it in any way. I'm just saying that the way in which you approach that process, you can either bring intelligence and thoughtfulness to it, and respect and some of the tradition that comes from those older style martial arts, or you can be a dick. And just have that coarse base understanding of the physicality. And I guess that's great if it's as far as you want to go. But if it is as far as you want to go, you're turning people into people who know how to hurt one another with no sense of moral guidance, and I don't think it's appropriate.
Well, I think a lot what we've seen over the past, almost 30 years now that MMA's been around, is a lot of these schools that kind of emphasize more of the machismo, just tough guy act, tend to burn out pretty quickly. But then you look at more kind of the facilities, such as yours or many of the BJJ schools or anything like that have also offered MMA. They tend to have more kind of like a familial culture. People are brothers and sisters, and the coach and professor, or the Sifu or sensei, they're always looked at as kind of a fatherly figure without being that cult figure that sometimes that line is very easy to cross. But obviously when you have those kind of and there was an MMA gym in Santa Clarita, not too far from where Ikata is now, that kind of had that similar culture. And I don't want to name names to really call out anybody, but that gym closed down, I think, maybe after 5-8 years of opening. And but a lot of the people that went there would, the stories that they were getting into street fights around the area and stuff like that, and weren't really practicing a very very strong ethical culture, in which is to say that most MMA BJJ schools that stick around long enough, they are definitely not that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you look at some of the forerunners. Look at the Machados. Those guys are great guys. They're really nice guys, and they have a wonderful, kind of what you alluded to, that brotherly type of culture in their schools. People are very friendly. I'm not saying that all MMA gyms are bad by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying that you could go anywhere. It's kind of like bad guy, the Cobra Kai karate guy. It's the same principle, no matter what you teach. If you have that negative mind state, it's going to trickle down to your students, and I just don't think that's good for anybody.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we're a little past a half hour. I know you didn't want to go too long, but is there any parting thoughts you really want to go with here, or and also as well as how people can get in contact with you if they wanted to come train with you, or to know where your gym is if they're up in the Santa Clarita, Valencia, kind of northern LA County area?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I think we predominantly talked about what's most important to me, which is the philosophy.
Yeah.
And and I do think that it is extraordinarily relevant, whether you are interested in studying martial arts or not, that we begin to emphasize a culture of consciousness.
Mm.
And one of the means by which one can do that is through the practice of mindfulness.
Mm.
What we do at UCLA, at the center there, is all based in secular mindfulness.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested in that, we have meditation classes at our center. Ekata. Ekata means oneness, unity in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
And we have them every morning. And then the website for UCLA, which is just look up MARC, M-A-R-C, Mindful Awareness Research Center, UCLA, and it'll pop up. I think it's marc.ucla.edu. But there's tons of free information on there, lots of online learning courses.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wonderful app called Stop, Breathe, and Think that was developed by a lady named Jamie. Oh my gosh, I forgot her last name. I think it's Paige, who was one of Lama Gyatso Luba's students, who was
Right.
my Tibetan Buddhist teacher.
Right.
And it's called Stop, Breathe, and Think, which is a terrific app for mindfulness practice. What I would assert is that that's something that everybody needs in their life, and there are forms of mindfulness that can be practiced in every tradition, whether you are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, or nothing. If you're atheist or agnostic, it matters not, because it is simply a method of being with what is.
Right.
And through that comes insight and self-realization.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the most important factor that I would suggest to anyone who may be listening to this that they should pursue. And then if they want to come and train with us, our site is ekata.net, ekata.net.
Mm-hmm.
Then they can come in and they can sign up online. It's very simple. It's like $30 a month to do online classes.
Nice.
Or you can, if you want to train in person, that's different. So you would come up here, and when our physical classes begin again, then we have students in for an interview, and we talk to them, and they have them come in and try a class. We don't have any salespeople or anything like that. It's just all geared towards us getting to know the person and making sure we have a good fit. And
absolutely.
If we do, then we accept the student, and it's not kind of like a drop-in, drop-out thing, or like a gym environment. It's a school, so you have to belong to it.
Right. Okay, that sounds great. Well, I appreciate you coming on here today. Thank you very much, and I hope to talk with you soon, and maybe we can swing around again, and once things are kind of back open a little bit more, then we can discuss more of this stuff, or anything. If you wanted to bring something up, you can as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, Troy, and thank you for having me on.
No problem.
And I hope you can come to the JPJKD Instructors Seminar in October. I think it's the first weekend in October. We typically have it, so if you
great.
Look it out in your schedule, you'd probably have fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'd actually been wanting to go to it for a while, and just like you said earlier, kept putting it off because of this and that, and I've come to the realization I need to stop doing that myself. So
Oh, and one other thing I
Yeah.
forgot to mention.
Yeah, of course.
Jerry Poteet's online academy. So
Oh, yeah.
if you just search Jerry Poteet, it'll pop up, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the e-learning academy. And there's a whole series of videos in there where you can actually, it's the next best thing to being with Sifu Jerry,
Right.
because you'll see me in there at the
Yeah.
old studio.
Yeah.
With the other instructors, where we went through a whole
Yeah.
slew of videos on the curriculum. So it's actually a really good way
Yeah.
to get
I
through.
remember you guys filming that.
Yeah. So for the instruction in Sifu Jerry's approaches, um, and it's really expensive. It's like $20 a month. So
Yeah.
if anybody would want to do that with pre-recorded information,
Yeah.
that's definitely the way to go. So I
Okay.
forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll go ahead and put that up. I'll have to get Sifu Fran on here one day too.
Oh, she'd love to. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's terrific. And boy, is she a repository of knowledge.
Yeah.
She's been
She
around for a
is.
long time.
Yeah. She definitely is. So. All right,
All right,
Sifu.
Troy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it again, and
Yes, sir.
we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Modern Martial Arts Health Radio podcast. Now, I hope you really enjoyed that interview with Sifu Ed Monaghan. I'll go ahead and get all those links in the show notes for you, so you can go ahead and check them out. If you're interested in joining or signing up for any of those things, you can go ahead and do so through them. And I'll tell you what, I've trained with him before, and I will continue to kind of always follow and train, you know, many of the things, much of what Sifu Ed Monaghan and Sifu Fran and even Sifu Jerry Poteet have taught me has stuck with me over the years. So some of it's very good, strong stuff. So I hope you really enjoyed that. And if you want to continue to support the podcast in some sort of financial way, I'd always appreciate it. You can go to the Patreon page. It's only $1 a month, really not that big of a deal. And if you don't want to do it right now, I understand, because everybody's kind of a little hurt for money. But go ahead and if you'd like to donate, just find Ground Dragon Martial Arts on Patreon, and you can sign up with $1 a month. Really, I mean, it's cheaper than the coffee you're paying for right now. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining me here today. And we'll be back in a couple more weeks. Have a great day. Bye.